If you want to start or scale your property development business to 8 figures and beyond, then you're in the right place. This is the Property XPerts Podcast with Ben Richards and Jack Jiggins, two serial entrepreneurs bringing weekly insights from our award-winning businesses. In these podcasts, you'll learn how we found, funded and delivered over £80 million worth of property in the last 6 years, with templates you can use, deal analysis and deep dive discussions that will help you build your businesses successfully. We hope you'll enjoy. Hello, I'm back. I know it's been a couple of weeks. I've been away on holiday. It was fantastic. But back in action now with Jack. And is it the end for HMOs? I remember 3 weeks ago when I was on the call, we went deep on a lot of HMO questions from the audience. So thanks for that. If you've got more, drop them down in the comments below. And we can address them at the end of the session of the podcast. But welcome if you're new here. Jack and I are serial entrepreneurs, property developers, business owners, and within our development business, we want to deliver 1,000 homes and £1 billion in property in the UK, collaborating with trusted investors. We're here every week, every Friday at 5 p.m. on the video podcast on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and that reminds me, I need to go live on Instagram, and we share the ups and downs of everything that's been going on in our businesses, all the troubles that we're having, all the successes, with the view to hopefully giving you guys insight into the businesses, and so that you can vicariously learn from our mistakes and hopefully generate a shitload of value for you guys. So welcome in. On today's agenda, there's some really exciting topics, and I'm looking forward to getting really deep dive into the AI game-changing platform that I've been using, that Jack loosely talked about last week, but I'm going to go into a huge amount of detail in this session, so stay tuned. Point number one, though, is Keir Starmer's outrageous comments around property developers and house builders, and how he's telling everyone to get on with it, and we'll have a bit of a chin wag around that. We've had some good conversations with our solicitors for a new project that we are pipelining. We're in legals on it, hence the solicitors being involved, and we're going to go into why having your solicitors on a call with their solicitors gets so much stuff done. REPLIT is what I talked about, being the AI game-changing tech platform that you should be using in your business. Jack had some bank holiday fun whilst doing a site tour with one of our acquaintances, investors, friends, and he's going to be talking about the insights he got from that. Thames Water. I'm always talking about Thames Water. Did they or didn't they connect to one of our sites? Find out in point 5 later today. Jack did a session on Jacquisitions at Reading Property Meet. We've got multiple investment opportunities open. So if you are an investor or you know people looking to invest in property, we have some options for you. So stay tuned. And then Jack's going to be really going to town on commercial valuations and the potential for them to really hinder your HMO success. We're going to be briefly talking about podcast sponsorship and then jumping into the Q&A and comments. So get your questions in early. There's been lots of engagement, lots of interaction over the last couple of weeks, which has been amazing. So you start getting your questions and comments in as early as possible. And let's jump into point number 1, Keir Starmer's absolute shithousery of comments that he's been coming out with this week. If you've not clocked it, I mean, I don't know about you, Jack, but my LinkedIn feed is just this. It's just like every single developer that I know, like jumping on this and giving their viewpoint. But if you've missed it, if you've been hiding under a rock, Keir Starmer in a tweet sort of or Facebook message, whatever this was from, said, "This is my message to house builders. Get on with it. If you promise homes, you have to build them. As part of our plan for change, we're introducing penalties if you don't build them fast enough." I mean, I've never heard so much trollop in my life. As if we want to just sit on our hands and twiddle our fingers and do nothing. We need to build homes to get that profit at the end of it and move things forward. If the planning system was in any way, shape and form a valuable asset to the process, we wouldn't be having delays. If we had the labor that we need to, we wouldn't be having delays. If we had more funding available and grants, we wouldn't be having the delays that we have. And I just think it's a complete misunderstanding of how the whole process works, to be honest. And I just put this in there as a bit of a rant. I'd love to know what you guys think down in the comments below. Jack, what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I don't think it's as bad for us and our listeners as bad as we think. I think Keir Starmer is targeting big national home builders.
Big boys.
If you look at the Berkeley Group, if you look at Barratt Homes, if you look at all of these big players, they'd probably have enough land to build for the next decade, and it's those developers that will pick on. Essentially, if you look at a big development company, they've got a land team that are bringing in sites routinely, and the land team's goal is to bring in more sites and units than they can deliver at sales rates at the tail end, because that is the bottleneck. You can only sell as much as you can sell. So that if you looked at this as like a business that's producing teddy bears, it's pointless building 1 million teddy bears if you can only sell 100,000. So the big national home builders will typically build 100,000 a year of teddy bears that they can sell literally the exact amount that they're building out. And the reason that they do that is, one, because they're getting their cash back in the door. Two, they're not raising debt against assets and build costs that they're not developing out. So I think it's more targeted at big national home builders. There have been talks about supporting more smaller SME developers, which would be amazing. We actually deliver half of what we did 10 years ago as SME. We used to deliver 40% of the housing stock in the UK, and now we only deliver 19%. And that is because of basically it being really difficult being a smaller player. So I do think the bigger players should get punished and be held accountable. The issues we do have with localized council and planning applications, which is our bottleneck, is they will always spend their time and attention on the bigger applications, because rather than reviewing 10 unit sites, they'll just review 100 unit site, and it's more efficient use of their time because they're all under-resourced and overworked. So, I mean, it is obviously really frustrating. He doesn't really understand the nuances of why the market isn't moving in the way that he wanted, which is like almost the epitome, like Ben said, the epitome of like not really understanding what the problem is. Sure, they've got a ton of data that they can see and we can't. I don't know, but I think that they need to be looking at, the big Barratt Home, Berkeley, looking at the land banks, because I know that those large home builders can, probably deliver for the next 10 years. And, they'll keep swallowing up sites because there's a lot of margin to be made in bringing those sites in. And actually the main cost of getting a site delivered is the construction, professional fees, and the debt to carry it through to point of completion. So yeah, frustrating to hear.
It's more like it's very much the stick, isn't it? The stick approach as opposed to the carrot. I mean, to introduce penalties, if they want houses built, like disincentivizing developers like this with penalties is just not the way forward. We need to incentivize, not penalize. I completely agree. Like, there are big players that do have land banks of tens and hundreds of thousands of more units. But ultimately, I've worked in schemes for the Berkeley Group where giving the Berkeley Group an extra year added an extra 15% of homes onto that scheme. So let's say you get a baseline approval and then they put a penalty on starting works and completing those units. Well, they've shot themselves in the foot, because if they gave them an extra 6 to 9 months to a year, maybe even longer, to optimize the scheme, to better enhance the scheme and create more homes and a better sense of place and a better designed scheme, then there could be even more properties to come out the back end of it. So get on with it, like as if we're not trying to get on with it. It's like, that's what we're trying to do.
What would be really interesting is if we had like some sort of rule of thumb, like for every week they're late in planning, we get an extra month in delivery.
Yeah,
I mean, it's fair enough. I mean, the ratio is probably right.
I mean, it's just, there's so many variables in this whole property development life cycle, and to think that the house builders don't really want to, like you say, they're only going to build homes as fast as they can sell them. Otherwise, they're just going to be sat there costing them money. So, yeah, difficult one to solve. But this sort of approach is just, I think, the furthest away from what's needed as it can be. But yeah, a bit of a rant to start off the week. But moving on to other interesting stuff that's happened this week, Jack will talk you through sort of the meeting that we had on site and the meeting that we had on Zoom that I think everyone should be trying to get in their diaries.
Yeah. I mean, I actually coincidentally had the same call again today. So earlier in the week, I think it was Tuesday, And then earlier today, we basically called a round robin with all the lawyers, buyers. So these are for acquisitions, and I guess you could do it for whatever you need to do it really, whether it's agreeing terms for an investor, whether it's basically anything you're drawing up legally. And it just does come to a point where lawyers just end up almost getting to sometimes into a stagnant stalemate and not actually getting anywhere. And on the call earlier today, so in the call today, we're selling Central Solicitors selling something, and the buyers was on the call, and he was like, look, I've got 30 years experience and my lawyer's got 30 years experience, and he said this. And I said, well, that's all well and good, but all he's trying to do is protect you, and my lawyer, all they're trying to do is protect me. But there's a mediation ground in between that we need to find to get this all agreed. And that was, exactly what these calls are for. We actually did them years ago. Ben, I don't know if you can remember, we did them week in, week out on the police station when we're selling that, because it just wasn't getting anywhere. And sometimes you don't actually need the call, but the call is good to have in the diary because it gets everyone to get their ducks in a row, because they know that they don't want to go on that call and have not done the work that they said that they had done that week. So that's one good really point about it. The second really good point about it is a lot of people that are listening, and even including Ben and myself, we're not legal, we're not lawyers, we're not solicitors. So a lot of the nuances, we don't understand the legalese behind it. So it's then very difficult for us to commercially agree something with another party, and without our lawyers being in the presence of, we can't then verify if that's acceptable and doable from a legalese perspective. So it's very good to have both sets of lawyers on the call at the same time, because then they can hash out the legalese. So it's constantly commercial conversation, legal conversation, commercial conversation, legal conversation. And the amount of ground you cover could be 100 emails back in, day out, and actually not getting anywhere. So we love it. I mean, you do have to, face the music sometimes if you're the slower person, but it gets stuff done. Maybe if you're trying to delay something, it might not be a good idea. But in these two occasions,
even then, it's good to see, have those open conversations to button things up and iron things out. And I think in the sort of contrary to what Jack was saying in terms of the legal teams doing their legal thing, the call that we had was very useful from a practical and a practical perspective, because what had happened is that the responses that we were receiving from the seller's solicitor just weren't accurate or didn't show an understanding of the building. Whereas on the call, we were able to have everyone on the call. I was able to share a plan that talked about the lift calls, the stair calls, the access arrangements, all of that stuff that maybe a solicitor isn't used to seeing, and has to understand, so that the wording is correct within the leases and the agreements. And without that, we could have been going back and forth for 2 weeks with their solicitor thinking the information they're giving us is correct. Our solicitor sort of feeding that back to us, and me thinking, well, what's going on here? That isn't right. And it could have taken weeks and weeks and weeks to get to the bottom of that. So, having a call with all of the different parties within a transaction can often achieve an incredible amount. So yes. Anything else to say about that?
No, just encourage it. If you feel like you're not getting anywhere, I suppose it is probably worthwhile saying, actually, at what point do you need to do this in a property transaction or in business? So we typically would set up a call with all parties and all lawyers once we're already past heads of terms, sales memorandum, things like that. So we've already renegotiated or negotiated the heads of terms. So heads of terms is a typical document where you both parties agree on the commercial basically standpoint and agree on things. So that might be the price, the timeframes, who the lawyers are, who the buyer is, what limited company is buying it, etc., etc., etc. That heads of terms document is way before this. You let the lawyers, either give it a good stab or hash it up. And then after that point, when I feel like you kind of get this break of work where people are drawing stuff up and pulling documents together, and then they sort of go through it top to toe and have a lot of amendments and changes. It's kind of that second point of amendments and changes when the commercials sort of drive back out of those legal stuff. That's when it's the best time to get this over the line. Or if legals are just dragging, because lawyers do actually now hide behind emails, and it's really frustrating because you're like, I sometimes can't even get hold of our lawyers, like get them on the phone and speak to them, like, where is it at? I'm being asked a question, I don't have the answer. So it's holding everyone accountable. And I feel like the latter parts of legals, sort of the second half, is a really good time to be doing this.
Nice. Cool. So Jack touched on this last week briefly, but I've been the one in sort of involved in utilizing it, testing it out, preparing stuff, and really going quite deep on it. So I'm gonna go a little bit deeper, show you what this is capable of, and just have a general sort of show and tell about what's been done so far and what it's capable of doing. So if you've not checked out the Diary of a CEO episode, it's the AI agents emergency debate from a couple of weeks ago, and it's extremely interesting, scary to be fair, around some of the views around AI and AGI, which is artificial general intelligence, whereby AI basically becomes almost as basically a human almost, and where that might lead. There's a lot of conversations around how AI will replace a lot of jobs, and that will happen. It's already started to happen. And those of you that get on board in that AI journey early enough and jump on it as a sort of early mover are going to set yourselves up for a lot more success in the future. That divide between successful, non-successful, wealth divide, inequality, all that stuff that's being talked about a lot lately with wealth inequality and things like that. The divide is going to get bigger between those that are utilizing these types of tools and being useful with it, and as Daniel Priestley says, having agency around it, i.e. not just urgency, but agency, will be faster, better, and better off in the longer term than somebody that kind of buries their head in the sand and sticks to not understanding it and not utilizing it within their businesses. So very interesting debate. Go and check it out on the Diary of CEO. But one of the people on that debate was talking about REPLIT, which is effectively, as they've said on their homepage, turning your ideas into apps. And the explanation on the screen is make me a business tool for project managers that helps monitor team performance metrics. These are all the types of things that you can type into it and it will create whatever you tell it to do. Obviously, it's not as easy as that, but I wanted to talk through and show you exactly the processes that I've gone through, all of the things I've asked it to do, the outputs that it's given me in terms of creating an XP Surveys client portal. This is something we've talked about for a long, long time in terms of integrating our clients, our surveyors, our internal processes, our teams, all into one portal where all of the information is located, and we can upload documents. We can share information with our clients. We can get external surveyors to work as part of the XP Surveys brand, and create a nationwide network of surveyors that all feed into our processes. And that's what this portal is, we're planning to do with this client portal. So I'm going to jump into a few of the things that we've been able to do, and I've got some fancy stuff on here which isn't working correctly, which is annoying. But ultimately, REPLIT is the centralized system that is, in fact, I will show that now before I jump into what it's done for us. This is REPLIT. So on the left-hand side, you can see all of the coding that is where you type all of your information and what you want it to do. And then on the right-hand side, it gives you a preview of your app, of your web platform. I've deployed this app. So I've done all of the development. I've deployed it into the internet. So if anyone goes to xps/portal.replit.app, it will come up with a portal. This isn't the finished article, but this gives you a sense of what you're likely to see. You can see on the left-hand side, I can switch. So what I've done here is create a portal that is suitable for 3 different people within our businesses. You've got the admin portal, which is this one, where all of our team can access all of our project information. You can see all of the people who have user access to the portal. You can see all of our clients. You can see all of our external surveyor base. And then if you are a surveyor, you can log into the surveyor side of the portal and you can see all of the jobs that you've either won or you've been allocated, or the projects that you're working on, and you can upload information to the portal via your login. And then you've got the client portal. So the client logs in. Aura Architecture is a client of XP Surveys. they can log in. And by the way, if you're listening on the podcast, this is a very, very visual piece that I'm talking about. So make sure you head over to YouTube and actually check out the video itself so you can see how this whole portal pulls together. But if I'm a client, I can log in and I can see my projects. So I can log in and see that, or log in as Aura Architecture. I can see that I've got 5 projects being surveyed at the moment. In each survey, I can see what stage they're at. Has it been surveyed on site? Has it gone through the drawing process? Is it in the QC process? Are we expecting to make payments, etc.? And that's what this side of the portal do. And this has all been built, by the way, with, I've got a small amount of coding experience, like very, very limited, very basic coding experience. For anyone that doesn't have any coding experience, you can still make these things happen, because all I am doing is talking to it and telling it what I want. And these are some of the things that I have been able to get it to do. And some of the things that I will be, continuing to work on and improving the process with. So REPLIT is the central integrated, AI agent that works on your behalf to build the app. And what I've been able to do is integrate all of the key components within our business. So we are, our website is a WordPress-based website. So I've given it integration access to see our website. So it can see all of the back end within our website. It can see all of the instant quoting process, which is actually done via Pipedream. So it can then pull in all of the information from our projects via Asana. It connects to our CRM, which is HubSpot, and pulls all this with Google Drive. So all of the documents that we want to upload into our client portal from our Drive can be integrated. And then it can also integrate with Xero to send invoices, track payments, track all of that project financial data that you want within your business. So all of those different tools can be pulled together via REPLIT to manipulate and display and process however the hell you want. And it does this with something called an API. You probably would have heard of it if you are relatively tech savvy. It stands for Application Programming Interface. Now, an API is effectively the bit in between the app, the website, and then the data box that it's trying to pull that information from. And this is I found this on the internet. It looked quite good. It sort of explained it. It explains it from a restaurant perspective. So your application is your customer. You're sat there, you're waiting, you're wanting to have some dinner. Your waiter comes over and takes your order. Now your waiter is the API. They're the ones that take things from orders from the table and send that information to the kitchen. The kitchen then gives the waiter the food, the data, the information. They take it back to the application stroke customer who's sitting at the table. So an API basically takes information from a data server or a location on the internet and takes it back to wherever it's being asked for. So which is your application, your platform. So that's an API. So what I've been able to do with our platform is from day one, and I guess sort of these are some top tips and top tools that I've learned whilst delivering and creating and using REPLIT to date. I have tried to give it as much information as I possibly can. So when I started, my initial brief was, we are a surveying business. We want to integrate our clients with our freelance surveyors and our internal teams to have one portal, one place where we can have all of our information. Everyone can integrate with it, and it's a one place fits all type program. To then give the AI even more information, I've uploaded various things. So I've given it our tech stack. So we have a PDF presentation where it says, this is what our website does for us. This is how we integrate our instant quoting tool. These are the platforms that we use: Google Cloud for addresses, ordnance survey data, instant quoting tool. All of that process has been given it to us. We've said, here's a PDF slide deck of all of the processes within our business. I've given it a fee proposal, which is what you can see on site. So a typical fee proposal saying, this is what we do for our clients. This is who we are. This is the structure that we provide. And these are our T's and C's. So it also has a full understanding of what our terms and conditions are. So I'm uploading things like this to the AI, and it comes back with something like this. Excellent. This fee proposal document is incredibly valuable for understanding your business processes. I can see some key information that would be perfect for integrating into the portal. So it's basically read all of that information within like 2 seconds, and it's come back and said, this document shows exactly how professional and comprehensive your service offering is. The portal can automate much of this process while maintaining the quality and professionalism. Would you like me to start building a quote generation system, payment status tracking, service selection interfaces? It's taken all that information, it's understood your business in like 2 seconds, and then it's given you things that I hadn't even thought about integrating into the portfolio as an option. And I could just go and say, yes, create me a payment status tracking process. So I've just typed that into the API, and it goes away and creates a payment status tracking process. This is how powerful it is. So I go back to the portal and show you some of the sort of key things that it did for me with literally words. This is me telling the API agent that we want to be signing up freelance surveyors. So there's a lot of one-man band surveyors out there. They want to be, they like being one-man bands. They're great at surveying. They're terrible at admin. They're terrible at marketing. They're terrible at finance. They just want to do their job. Just want to be surveyors, get out there, survey, produce drawings, away you go. They don't want all the admin behind it. So our goal with XP Survey is to take it nationwide, is to create a freelancer marketplace effectively. So we win a project, we do all of the front end marketing in our HQ. We've got all the admin, all the finance team. We win the work. We put it onto our portal. A freelance architect, a freelance surveyor will basically bid for that work, and we'd outsource that survey to that freelancer. Now, all I've said is I want a freelancer portal. I want freelancers to be able to sign up. So create me a sign up form that a freelancer can come and provide their information. It's read all of our T's and C's. It's read all of our stat deck. It's read our website. The AI knows probably more about our business than we do. And it's literally created this form without me having to say anything. It was a 3-step form. It's got the contact information of the person inquiring for becoming a freelancer with us. It said, what services and experience do you have? So do you do 3D laser scanning? Do you do 3D modeling? Do you do drone surveying? All of these things, it's just taken from our website. It's asking for insurance and qualification details. What's not shown on this page that it did on the previous page was what softwares do you use? Do you use Revit? Do you use AutoCAD? I've not told it to ask any of that. It's learned how we operate as a business, and it's created a freelancer portal that is intuitive and gathers all the information that we might need to make a decision on that particular person. And then it creates, and it is broken at the moment, so I need to actually get into this and fix it. But it create, when I click on freelancers, it brings up basically like a rating system. So Joe Bloggs inquired to be a freelancer. He's got experience in 3D laser scanning using Revit. And he's based in this location. Here's my experience. Here's my CV. We can then rate that person, from on a 5 star rating system, whatever, so that we know when a job comes in, if they apply for it, do they have the relevant skills? We can see that very quickly, and we can accept the job, accept the winning bid, or not, for example. So yeah, this is where I'm currently at. The pricing for this, when I talk about how much of a game changer this is, if you look at the platform that I built, I reckon there's probably 20 grand's worth of software development that's gone into building that platform. And I've done it in probably 20 hours of work while sitting by the beach on holiday. It's cost me $25 for a month. And I think I've racked up another $10 in further quotes. So you get a cap. You have a $25 credit limit. You get up to 100 agent checkpoints. So there's various checkpoints as you go through using that agent. I maxed out on the 100, but it cost me, I think, $0.0025 per checkpoint thereafter. So it's, I think for 40 quid, I've built the basics of a platform that would have probably taken 2 months in back and forth with a software developer, and probably 20 grand's worth of fee. And I'm just going to be speaking to Trevor, our business development manager, next week. I'm going to be working with him to just continuously tweak and amend this portal to a point where we get it to a live working portal that we can use internally. Like I said, it's already pulling through all of our data from the Asana boards. So if I go onto this all projects page, hopefully, if it's not broken still, it will pull in there you go. So all of these boards are live projects. Literally, I can see that this one was created on the 20th of May. This one was created on the 29th of May. What day is it today? 30th. So here we go. 30th of May. Got a new survey that's been added to Asana. Using the API integration, REPLIT has pulled that information, put it into our portal. You've got all of the key information loaded up. I can see that the survey date is next Tuesday. And it's, that's purely done through the API integration that it's asked for. So yeah, Jack, any questions? Because I know you haven't really seen much of this at this point.
I had a little browse around when you sent me through the link. I mean, what's even more scary for me is when you say 20 grand's worth of coding, and we chatted about this the other day. That's also, 20 grand down to 100 quid or whatever it costs. That's down to like, if you look at actual people coding on that and how many hours are spent out in terms of labor, it's scary in terms of how much that's going to change this industry, which is crazy. But I mean, it's evidently exactly like you say, there's going to be people that adopt things like this in terms of AI, like you say, and obviously technology in your website is typically, if you set up a business, the second thing you do after setting up a company, other than buying a domain, is set up a website. So it's a really good place to start and to start exploring with this type of technology to feed into your business and your business efficiencies and building your own back-end systems. Because what Ben's essentially getting at is it's not only just a portal for us to communicate with clients, it's also our own portal internally, which imagine how efficient we're going to be on that, rather than essentially having to use project management software that we pay for monthly, and we can actually just build our own in this.
That's it. Yeah. So at the moment it's pulling in Asana data, but it's been built in a way where I can just click that I want to build it's broken at the moment, but I can click new project, and where we'll be transitioning to is we'll no longer need Asana. We'll just start going directly into our client portal, building the projects directly into our portal. And yeah, like Jack says, we're no longer paying whatever it is we pay for subscriptions to Asana every month. It might be that we don't have to pay for HubSpot anymore. There's so many integrations that mean, we can build it so bespokely that we can effectively get to do whatever we want with it. I saw a stat, I think, the other day where last year, the average sort of IQ of all these AI agents back then was about 100. Whereas just 1 year thereafter, beginning of 2025, that IQ of the average AI agent was 140, which is, 140 is like borderline genius. And that's in 1 year in terms of the exponential improvement of how fast these things are growing. And like if I scan up here, like obviously you can sort of see all of the comments in it. And if let me just show you what it can do. If I say, freelancers, bring back the freelancer mock data. So, I type something in, it basically says, I'm thinking about this, let me have a look, blah, blah, blah. Whilst it's doing that, I'll sort of talk through how it generally works. And it's me literally telling it what I want. I found myself telling it off when it couldn't quite get what I'm trying to ask for it, and maybe that's me not being as good a prompt master as I need to become. And I think that is a massive skill set that you're going to need going forward. Even when using ChatGPT, any sort of AI agent, you are going to have to really understand how to give the AI agent solid prompts, because if you don't, it's basically information in, information out. If you give it shit information, it's going to give you shit information out. So you have to be really, really specific with what you want it to do. How it does it is kind of what is great for them, but what you want as an outcome, you have to be very, very prescriptive with what you want from it. So I've typed in bring back the freelancer mock data. It says I can see the API keys. Okay, so I need to configure some API keys. So it's fixing some information, and I did tell it off at one point, and because it kept saying, "Oh, I'm finished. Check it out. Please test the page." I'd go onto the page and test it, and there'd be errors. So I basically told it, I said, before you tell me you've completed something, I want you to run a final check and test the page yourself. And then every time it did something thereafter, it would have a couple of extra steps where it would do its own checks. So, I mean, it's incredibly intelligent. It's been such a eye opener for me as to what could happen with this. I feel a bit aggrieved that I've paid about $5,000 to start introducing Zoho into Aura. And that was purely on the basis of building a platform at the front end that could sort of track our sales pipeline and do a bit of project management. And now, having used this for literally a week, I could probably build our own within a short space of time and do a lot with $5,000 worth of cost. So yes, that is REPLIT. It is definitely a game changer for every business. If you haven't looked into it yet, do take a look, listen to the Diary of a CEO episode. And if you've got any questions or comments, drop them below, because I've got into the crux of this. I've been living and breathing it for a number of hours. And if I've got, I'm sure there's tips and tricks I've learned that I haven't even talked about on this session. So yeah.
I think we will come to one of the questions. The other two will come to the end, but this one is relevant to this conversation. So it's from our good old friends, Hash Windows Cambridge Company. How are you doing again? If an AI bot can soon buy, build and manage a portfolio, surely that will provide much more supply and reduce price. I mean, correct. That's kind of technology altogether. Like funds surely will deploy this and cost of real estate will go down.
I mean, I don't think it's going to be as simple as that. I mean, a bot, somebody's still going to be building that property. They're going to have, real estate is physical. It's a tangible asset that you can touch, feel and smell. So there's always going to be, I think, in property, a need for people. The management of it, absolutely.
Yeah, but I mean, even if you look, Ben, just click slideshow on your slides.
I mean,
if you look at the management of it, so let's assume I'm a landlord, I've bought a property, it rents out for 20 grand a year. The agent's charging 10% of that 20 grand a year, which is £2,000 per year. That agent's overheads actually associated with potential savings that could be saved via technology, I doubt is any more than like 30%, 40% improvement change. So when you look at the 20k revenue increase, 20k revenue, the actual margin that technology is going to change that is potentially less than 5%, I think. So yeah, I mean, it's going to improve everyone's life, make a lot of things easier, systemize everything. I mean, that a lot of people's time isn't wasted on going through inventories. You might have AI that spots changes, does property checks, references, and does all that stuff. Great. But I still think that the majority of the market is human-led in our industry, which is where you're quite safe, I think.
Yeah, I think with all tech like this, that end, like you say, reduce the price at the end of the chain. That's going to take a long time to happen. What's going to happen between then and now is that the people that are using this type of technology, their margins are going to be far greater, and they're going to be, making a lot more money because they are being more efficient than those that aren't, until the time in which, that end result kind of catches up. So you want to be at the forefront, utilizing this type of technology, utilizing AI agents as much as you can, because if you're not, you're going to get left behind. So yeah, jump on the bandwagon. Cool. Onto your site tour.
Yeah, so I had the pleasure on Monday of attending and also speaking at Mac, who is I think he's kind of like one of our super fans that followed us. He's invested some money with us, been paid back. We communicate with him a lot. I love Mac. I mean, his language is one of the main things that I love about him. He swears a lot. It's hilarious. Apparently we're effing legends. and all that. But no, it was really good. So Mac's background is actually in technology, actually Wi-Fi and the technology world, and it's really interesting to see someone that's kind of like bossed that industry move into property. This was the site that we visited, which is absolutely miles away, like near Northampton. Essentially is a 3-unit commercial conversion, and it's really good to see him sort of go through the ranks and actually share, what his learnings were essentially, and sharing his journey across that. And there was a lot of people there that were new to property and wanted to learn a little bit more about commercial conversions. So big shout out to Mac. He's actually setting up his own podcast, so definitely recommend you go and check that out and see what his swearing is really like, rather than taking my word for it. But yeah, good to be hosted, and a trip out on Monday to share it with them. Unfortunately, the 3 p.m. liquid lunch wasn't massively enjoyed by me because I had a 2-hour drive afterwards. So I was very sensible, and only had one drink. So very boring on a bank holiday, but the site tour was exciting.
Cool.
Yeah, not much more to add.
Very good. Cool. We've been running these podcasts now for 2.5 years. I actually don't know how many episodes we've done, but we are live every Friday at 5 p.m. across YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, all of those different platforms. We take that video podcast and we put it into audio format onto Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon, all of the standard platforms that you might go to. If you get value from them, please rate us on Spotify, leave a review on Apple. It does make a massive difference. And if you could just share it with one person, that would make a huge deal to us, because we want to share the value. We want to get as much many eyes on what we produce as much as we can, because it's a time investment for us, and we've been doing it for a long time now. Everyone that listens in says they get huge amounts of value from it, so we want to make sure that we're giving more people value. So please share it. If you can share it in your WhatsApp groups, in your property groups, in your Facebook groups, whatever, we would really appreciate it. And we had a new testimonial Google review through today from Tarek, who runs H Squared. If you're not following them on Instagram, head over there. They've got some really good videos of one of the recent schemes that they're developing. It's, I think, 4 units or 6 units down in Kent. New build, SIPS panels, come out of the ground really fast. They do lots of informative videos on their Instagram. Tarek is a structural engineer, civil engineer, and they go into a lot of detail in some of their videos. But the guys at XP, Jack and Ben, are both very knowledgeable and experienced operators who have helped our development business massively in a short space of time. They're also very honest people and deal with things with integrity. Highly recommend them if you want to add knowledge and information to your business. And it's worth saying that they're saying that because we've done a number of sort of one-to-one consultancy calls, mentoring, whatever you want to call it, to effectively get them into property development, get them out of the sort of day job and into some serious schemes, which is what they're doing now. So we've been able to help that process, and we're really sort of appreciative to get that feedback and see their progress. So yeah, if you're interested in doing the same, we run various consultancy, business coaching, mentorship, mastermind type programs. Reach out via any platform you're listening to. We'd love to speak to you and have you on board, and help you grow and scale your property development business.
It's actually over 120 episodes.
There you go. Happy days.
How does it guess? At probably 124, because I think we've missed a couple. Maybe when we were like being.
I think if I remember back rightly, we've only missed 3. I think.
Yeah,
out of the whole
123. That would be.
There you go. Yeah, and I think
we missed them because we were probably doing a charity kayak. Just raising a couple of tens of thousands. So yeah,
saving a few cats from trees and doing our duties. Yeah. So cool. Thames Water connections. Or what?
I was going to say singing from the hills of the praises of Thames Water.
Yes,
one of the things we could have been busy doing.
Would be something that I can never envisage myself doing. They are a pain in the ass, but I have a lot of good news to sort of throw out there. On Tuesday night this week, and it was a night install, they installed our water connections at Marlow. It only took them 11 months as well, which is might be a new record for them. I think our application went in and we paid their fee in June 2024. So yeah, May 2025, we finally get the connection.
Smoke coming off the tyres of the Thames Water van that
That's
I
right.
saw when it was in there.
How fast they are. But yeah, great news. It means that, you know, we can get things commissioned. I was on site this morning actually, and Alex ran a tap, and I was like, ooh, that's good. That's nice to see. It's been a while, but we're there now. It means that we can get a lot of progress made and get to building control sign off a lot faster. And Jack, you were chatting at Reading Property Meet.
Yeah, so I think the last time I spoke there might have been 2 years ago in the summer. Weirdly, I always speak there sort of early summer. I think last time I spoke in July. But anyway, I love the Reading Property Group, and the reason I love the Reading Property Group is like there's obviously bunches of really good people in this industry, and Adam Vickers, who runs the event and also Property Foundations Group, is an absolute legend. Like if I called him up and wanted to talk about something, he will not leave that call until he's given me as much time as he can. He's a very, very generous guy, very knowledgeable guy. And for that reason, I love doing it. And it's also a really cool venue. It's at the Thames Lido, which is basically an old swimming pool that's got renovated in Reading. So it's a really, really cool venue, really good event. I talked through acquisitions because that's what I talked about last time 2 years ago, but with a few adaptations. But kind of made me realize that not a lot changes really. We use the same processes, whether we're buying a house or a development. And I talked through all of that and had some really good questions and saw some old faces. So yeah, thoroughly enjoyed it.
Sweet. Thanks, Peter, as always. 10 out of 10 for consistency. Well done for sticking with it. Yeah, it's been 120 episodes. It's a lot of time, a lot of value, hopefully. Cool. And then on to the next point, which is that we've got a number of investment opportunities that are active at the moment, ranging from the smallest ticket, which is a £300,000 investment, which will be secured by a second charge on one of our assets. We've got a larger scheme in central London, which is more of an equity investment, £12 million GDV. That will be on a profit share basis. We've got a social housing portfolio, which we've mentioned, a few times. We're looking to sell that or potentially recapitalize. So if you're looking for longer term income, there's a lot of, if I talk about this deal, which is the £12 million development in central London, that's a development deal, a lot riskier type of deal, higher margins, and that suits some investors. Whereas other investors want stability. They don't want the risk. They don't want the fluctuations. They want stable income with a good covenant. And this is the type of thing that they might be interested in. So social housing portfolio, 10 to 25 year leases with a registered provider, income of just shy of £1 million on that portfolio, value, anywhere upwards of sort of 16, 17 million pounds. So if you know anyone looking for more longer term investment, then we'd love to hear from you. And then finally, we've got another smaller development, which is a HMO type development, 500 grand equity investment required. We already own it. We're looking to expand it. So that investment will come in to recapitalize our existing investors and provide a certain amount of build costs to just deliver an extra couple of bedrooms within that property. So 4 opportunities. If you're listening to this, people that are looking to invest in properties. They want to invest in award-winning developers that generate award-winning deals. We'd love to speak to you. So drop us a message. There's a form on our website if you go to xpproperty.co.uk where you can inquire, and one of us will give you a buzz and find out what you're looking for, and hopefully we can help.
And we also pay introducer fees. So please bear that in mind if you would like to make an introduction.
Yep. Cool. Are commercial valuations the kiss of death for HMOs? This has come up regularly recently, and you're going to do a little bit of a spiel.
It has, and I've been banging this drum for a few years, and it actually came up more prevalent so with someone actually at the site tour day on Monday. And I just kind of wanted to bang that drum again and kind of get my thoughts and message out there, because I see a lot of people building really successful HMO portfolios and making hay while the sun shines. But I do think that there's a little bit of a trap door that can be found when it comes to commercial valuations for HMOs. And it came about, and I won't mention who or where their portfolio is, but essentially the conversation I was having with this young lad absolutely dialed down their strategy, really good model, is they're buying houses and they're converting them into sui generis HMOs. Now, the 2 valuation types that you have in HMOs is bricks and mortar, which is essentially what is it worth as a family home, Yeah, granted, it's probably a bit of a weird layout with maybe more rooms than normal, but what does it value as a family home? And then B is commercial valuation, where you take the income, typically the gross income, and then you deduct an operational cost, and then you multiply it by a yield. So wherever you are in the UK, the yield will be different. If you've got a HMO in Zone 1 London, which is pretty limited, but if you did, you might get a 4 or 5% compressed yield. Whereas if you've got a HMO in Nottingham, you might get a 10% yield on that HMO. Now, the real problem comes about is when, I believe, you as a landlord, a HMO landlord, you start doing HMOs and delivering HMOs in potentially an area that has an undersupply and an over demand. So you go to an area and you go, wow, I'm buying properties at 150k. I'm kitting them out, spending 100 grand refurbishment costs on them, and revaluing them at maybe 400-500k on the income, when the underlying assets, bricks and mortar valuation still might be 250 grand. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because the guy that I was chatting to sort of foresaw this issue, and this is why we were talking about it. Now, the problem comes about if you're building a really high cash flow portfolio where the income services the mortgages are technically maybe double the bricks and mortar valuation. And the reason that the commercial mortgages are really valuing up really well is because it's your rent roll multiplied by yield. Now, if you then move that market over the course of a few years, maybe 5 years, into a point where that area, other people have saw what you're doing, other people have been on Spare Room and saw that you're charging 795 per bed, and you're still buying assets 150k, they're thinking, I need to get in on this. This looks really good. And there'll always be competition in HMOs, and that's just the nature of it. So everyone starts piling in this location that you might have even been an early adopter or maybe even a follower yourself. But then becomes a point where there's so many professional landlords in the area that the room rates then start to quibble down. And what I mean by that is there's then oversupply and under demand because there's so many landlords operating in that particular space. Void rates pretend to come longer and more frequent. And equally, the room rates are potentially going to come down because people are competing on price. Classic like price elasticity of economics, if you ever want to look into stuff like that. But essentially supply and demand, and when demand is lower, price comes down. Now you've got a locked in potentially 5-year fixed mortgage. You're over leveraged to the point where you're potentially in negative equity, and you've got to refinance that asset out. So all of the cash that you're pulling out in the first 5 years might have been logical to potentially hold on to some of that cash for the latter 5 years, if only if competition is rife, because you may be in a position where you're actually having to put money back in because you're getting a lower valuation than you did before. So that's just something to be really conscious of. And the way that I see most people get exposed is if it's a smaller location and there's not many landlords there, and then all of a sudden people start going there. So I think you're okay if you've sort of monopolized the area, because you'll probably have more success in stabilizing and staying alive. Good song that. Staying alive compared to other competition. But what you need to be really cautious of is actually those valuations. So if you look at our portfolio, for an example, we currently don't actually have any sui generis houses. So every single house that we have is a bricks and mortar valuation. We've got our first sui generis being refinanced in the next few weeks. I'm excited to do a commercial valuation because we haven't done one of those before on our assets. Ben and I are finishing some cluster flats. That'll also be a commercial valuation. But I would say that our portfolio is varied. So not all of our stock is commercial valuations. Yes, it's great to get some cash back out, but I would just be very cautious of that cash when it is put to use. Maybe keep something liquid just in case you need a rainy day fund. And then to also touch on that, you might be thinking to yourself, I'm pretty sure your social housing portfolio down in South London is on commercial valuations and a yield-based valuation. And that is completely correct. It is. But the leases in those will not change as significantly because the minimum lease that we sign is a 10-year full repairing lease. It's also LHA linked. So LHA should, it's not necessarily inflation, but it should increase in line with market rents. And those market rents are actually for local housing allowance, so a slightly different strategy, but the security of rent and tenure for 10 years, which is very, very, very different to security of tenure for actually rolling. You know, the average tenancy in HMOs is about 18 months. So thought that would be worthwhile to share if anyone out there is looking to grow up HMO portfolio and something to consider. You can do two methods. You can actually do, I'm going to build one portfolio in one location and do maybe some smaller ones that are bricks and mortar that are maybe 5 and 6 beds, maybe some bigger ones that do, really kick the shit out of revaluing and pulling a load of cash out. You can even split the portfolio like we have in 2 locations. We've got a high capital value area location, which is around where we live. And then we have a lower capital value location, which is better for cash flow, which is our stock near Oxford. So you can then split that portfolio and diversify it, or you could do what we're doing and actually not do many commercial valuations full stop, which is something to consider. But Ryan and I from on the ground up were talking about this, and he is actually kind of shitting himself as well, because he works in Darlington, where whatever you're buying and spending on an asset is literally double, sometimes 3 times the bricks and mortar valuation. And you kind of think, where does this end? And I completely agree. And that's why I like the South.
Yeah, you're sort of in that situation, waiting for the market to break even, right? You're sort of taking that cash into the point in which the bricks and mortar value of the property matches that investment yield value, which could be a long time to wait. Interesting, lots of food for thought. Let us know down below. We've got some good HMO questions coming in. I'll just quickly talk about them because we're going to jump into them in a minute. What are the minimum ensuite size you need for a HMO? Do you think the government will ever disallow HMOs altogether? Thinking about old Farage's comments and the like. Yeah, I've seen that this week. Have you ever done assisted sales on HMOs or just flips on the open market? What's the best strategy for this on houses? Cool, so we'll come into that in a minute. If you get value from this podcast, if you're a B2B, if you're a business and you want, the best part of, we've had 12,500 downloads, I think, so far. That's just purely through the podcast. The podcast started a lot later than the actual YouTube channel. So the YouTube channel, I believe, has had, what do we get? 10,000 monthly views. I can't actually remember what the figures are, but if you want to know those figures, they're in our sponsorship package. We are looking to get some sponsors on this podcast, whether that be for just a one-off session, if we're talking about something in particular, or a annual sponsorship where you'll have mentions in every single podcast that we do, links to the description, links to your website in our descriptions. You'll be put into our email database, our email newsletters every month. We'll send out special email newsletters to promote your businesses. So if you're interested in having a very dedicated audience of property developers, architectural clients, engineers, anyone in the property space, then reach out. We can send you the sponsorship package, and we are very good value at the moment. Obviously, we are just starting this sponsorship process, so anyone that gets in now is going to get the cheapest rates that we will ever offer. Make sure you reach out now. Ooh. And on to giving more value and referrals and sponsorships. We love Zero. We use it in every single business. And if you want to get 90% off Zero for the first 6 months, then click the link in the description. There's a bit.ly link on screen. You can get 90% off of your subscription for 6 months by clicking that link. So click away. Over to the Q&A. So let's start from the top. Gareth, you were very quick to jump in early on in the session. Gareth Bodwin, thank you very much. You've asked, have you ever done assisted sales on HMOs or just flips on the open market? What's the best strategy for this on houses? Yes, in short. There's a couple of videos on our YouTube channel, if you're interested, where we talk about and go into deep detail on assisted sales. We worked on a 5-bedroom house that we converted to 2 3-beds by splitting it down the middle, refurbishing, converting a garage. The owner couldn't sell the property on the open market, couldn't sell it at auction for 420 grand is what he wanted for it. We said, we'll give you 420 and we'll give you a share of the profit on the exit via an assisted sale route. So we agreed to pay him that 420. We were due to bring the 100 grand that was, part of the refurbishment works. And then we sold the asset at the end and split the profit. So what actually happened on that project is when we said we would raise the 100 grand elsewhere, he said, well, I'll give you the 100 grand at an interest rate of X. So effectively it was a vendor finance deal and an assisted sale. And for 5 months work, we ticked away with, I think, something like 50 grand, 60 grand. We've done them. best strategy for this on houses? I mean, I'm not sure what you mean by best strategy. You know, assisted sales is a different strategy that you can use.
I think the question is, can you do them on HMOs or just flip? So the one that Ben mentioned is flipping a house. I can't see how you could do an assisted sale with a HMO unless you own the HMO with them at the end, which is, I think, a little bit messy. Assisted sales are really, really good if you approach a so for other, as Ben has exactly explained, assisted sale is basically almost like you buy it, but the JV partner from an investment perspective is the owner, because they're putting up their asset and you're delivering everything else. I think that's really difficult to cleanly do that with HMOs. We do it. So Ben and I have done it before, and actually we've done a couple in central suites as well. So they do work really well, specifically on flips. The beauty of doing them on residential flips is because stamp duty is a big chunk of our costs now, and if you remove that and share that with the owner, it really improve your bottom line. So they're an amazing strategy. We actually have a assisted sale heads of terms document in part of our document suite. So if you would like that, Gareth, we're more than happy to share that. So just reach out and we can share that with you.
I think if it's a question about sort of the open market, yes, you know, but I think both of those, almost all of them have been on the open market, right? You know, they've been on the open market, they've not sold. We've said, you know, we like the site, we like this project. You can't achieve what you want for it by, you know, the state that it's in currently. You need to add the value first to then appeal and add that value and add the, you know, increase in property value will help you do that added value process, and we want a share of the profit. But all of those have been on the open market, so it's absolutely possible. Yeah.
I mean, a big land promoter is essentially just doing a big assisted sale. They have big farm landowners. They say, we'll get the planning on it and we'll split the upside. That's essentially what an assisted sale is. So, yeah.
Christina, maybe, I know that Jack did a bit on his assisted sale. Maybe we can dig out the episode that Jack went through that in detail. And drop it in the comments below. Do you think the government will ever disallow HMOs altogether? Thinking about old Farage, yeah, I've seen seen Farage's comments. It does scare me. You know, it for me shows a complete lack of understanding of what they are and what their requirement is. You know, we're talking about rents going up. We're talking about people not being able to get on the housing ladder. Where else is there? It's house shares. You know, when I came out of uni. When I was in uni, you know, we were all living in house shares. As a young professional living in London, you know, absolutely brilliant. Moving in with 6, 7, 8 other people that, you know, young professionals, good social life, enjoying themselves. You know, private HMOs like that are brilliant. I don't think we should be tarnishing HMOs with the same brush as social housing HMOs, because I do completely understand. You know, we've got a portfolio of them. There can be more issues when you're putting people that, you know, potentially have mental health issues into their own you know, shared house. Opportunities for clashing and issues arising and social behavior and things like that. Absolutely. But you know, it is scary what he was talking about.
He was more targeting I mean, just looking online, he was more looking at concerns in housing illegal immigrants and asylum seekers. So he's kind of pointing at two things here: the fact that we have illegal immigrants and asylum seekers, and also the fact that they're housed in HMOs. And actually, which is pretty disgraceful. Someone was telling me the other day that they've, like, I can't remember who's released their latest rich list in the UK, and on that rich list is someone that's a landlord to asylum seekers, from the revenue that it generates from that. And that's pretty disgusting from a taxpayer's perspective. That is just like someone monetizing that so strongly. But I can't see how you can remove HMOs. That's almost like saying flats aren't allowed in the market. Like, it's now such a fundamental part of young professional life and cycle that I just think it's so robust. And actually, the more the regulations clamp down on HMOs, the easier it is to bat off competition, because it's more difficult to break into that space and understand it. and people have to invest a lot more money and time and expertise and contacts and professionals around them to deliver them. Obviously, it kills your margin. That's like the upsetting part. But I would have loved to live in one of my HMOs that we own now, and that was kind of the whole proviso of setting up the business. So hopefully, it doesn't impact businesses like ours who do them properly and serve a really good purpose, where the tenants actually walk away from our properties going, "That was such an important part of my life, and I can now afford even better to buy, get onto the property ladder because it's more cost effective than renting an individual flat."
Nice. We are out of time, really. I know there's a couple more questions coming in. Civil developers, you've also asked how do you raise equity in HMO deals. You also asked about the minimum sizes of en-suites. Peter, I know you've got another question about AI as well in purchasing and analysing deals. Let's answer them next week. If you want to know the answers to those, tune in next week. Bit of a spoiler alert. Sorry to cut it short, but we're already over an hour. I've got kids to feed and see to. If you've enjoyed that, please rate us on all of the different platforms. Share it with just one person that you think will get value from it. And have a great weekend. See you next week.
Bye.